get a lot of people that buy these fantastic BP51s, and they know they're an adjustable shock, but we do get a lot of questions. So first one, just quickly, tell me what's compression, what is rebound?
So compression is basically when the shock is compressing, the suspension in the car is compressing, normally after hitting a bump or something like that. Then rebound is what happens when the shock extends again and the vehicle rebounds after a compression event.
This will adjust both compression and rebound separately. So let's talk about compression first. Why would you adjust your compression?
I suppose when we first set it up to come out of the factory, and part of our development and tuning process is to come up with a factory setting that we think most people will want. That's in the owner's manual, it's in the fitting instructions, where are your factory settings? So that's designed to carry a middle of the range load and do the right control. So you might come back from that. If you haven't got any accessories on, the weight of the car is not that heavy, it doesn't actually need to be slowed down. But if you're consistently finding that maybe you've got some accessories on and you're hitting bump stops, probably not hard, but if you're on a track and you're hitting bump stops a bit more often than you want to, then you probably wind a bit more compression in, and what that does is slow you down. So what the settings on the shock mean, down this end that we call 0, at the thin end of the wedge, that means that there's little compression or it's soft. So it's easy to compress the shock. As you wind it up and firm it up, sort of say from 0 to 10 to the fat end of the wedge, it's going to become firmer and harder to compress the shock. So if you find the car's bouncing around, it's compressing in too fast, then you can wind that up. And the ways I'd suggest doing that is not by just maybe inching at 1 or 2 and being a bit timid with it. Find a nice spot that's not busy, it's not dangerous, and if it's set at the factory at 4 or 5, maybe just whip it right back down to nothing and understand your shock. You shouldn't get into too much trouble, keep the speed down, don't do any crazy turns or anything like that, and feel how much the car moves around. That's the best way I think to go. If you go firm, first off, it's just going to be stiff. So wind it all back to 0, let the car move around and understand it. And then maybe just do one at a time from there. Wind compression right up to as stiff as it can go. Again, not 1 or 2 spots, just go as stiff as you can go and understand what that does. So on the compression stroke, the shock gets shorter as you go into a hole or you go over a bump or something like that. So you've compressed the whole suspension system up, you're storing a lot of energy now in the spring. And so that spring wants to rebound back out again. And the way you control the speed at which that rebounds out is by adjusting the rebound there. So down here at 0, with the thin end of the wedge, it's got its minimum, its softest rebound. So it's going to spring back up really quickly. If you go up to sort of from say 0 to 10, the fat end of the wedge, that's really going to hold on to it and give you a lot of rebound control and really control that spring as it bounces back up.
So the kit comes with the adjustment spanner and it is really, really easy. So what would be some common scenarios why you would change and make those adjustments?
Probably one of my favourite examples is in the desert or on the beach or where sand's involved. So typically you've probably got a bit of weight on. It's probably on a fairly firm setting because you're doing some high speed along the way and it's on bitumen and you want some good control of all that weight you've got on. But when you get into the sand, you let your tyres down. First thing you do when you get into the sand is you let your tyres down. So that decrease in tyre pressure gives you a level of rolling flushness and a bit of comfort there. The other thing the sand gives you is it gives you a level of compliance. You know, the sand will move when the vehicle passes over it. You know, it's not like bitumen that's quite solid. So with softer tyres, softer surface that you're driving on, you can stiffen your shocks up a bit. And the advantage that gives you is you can carry that little bit more speed. And particularly if you're off-road, on sand or in the dirt, and you get onto that, you know, unexpected obstacle when you get that oh crap moment that you're going to hit the bump stop. So to avoid that, you can crank a bit more compression in, you can crank a bit more rebound in to control that spring energy as it wants to extend, and really rely on the tyre pressure and the softer surface to give you a bit of compliance and get the full benefit out of the shock at the same time.
What about towing? What would you do if you were suddenly towing something heavy?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things you can do with towing. You know, you're going to have additional ball weight that's got a little bit more leverage too by being so far back on the car and it's right on the ball. So you can put a bit more compression in to stop that ball weight from pushing the rear of the vehicle down. The other thing that towing does is it sort of tends to cantilever and pick the front up. So the other good tip there is you can crank a bit more rebound in even when you're on the road, on the highway and towing there, and just going over those gentle undulations. If you've got a fair amount of ball load, it's going to want to keep pulling the front of the vehicle up, which is not good for steering and braking and everything else. So a bit more rebound in the front when you're towing is a really good tip.
Well, that's really, really interesting because that shows where you're adjusting just compression in the back and just rebound in the front. And that's one of the really big benefits of this product is being able to independently adjust that and finally tune it to your requirements. So all you customers, please have a go. See, it's very, very easy to adjust, but if you need some help, always remember, head to your local ARB store. They're there to help.